Welcome to this bonus edition of Everything is Awesome. Happy 4th of July, everyone. We have decided to release I don't want to call it a 4th of July special because that has nothing to do with the holiday, but it's the 4th of July. Celebrate America's independence by listening to a bonus episode of Everything is Awesome. We actually have 2 interviews in this one. The first one is from a writer-author, Tal Klein, and we sat down for a short brief period of time. I feel like that was redundant, and chatted about his writing process, his first book, his book that's in the Inkshares Nerdist contest right now that he's part of with 14 other authors, and sci-fi in general. And we decided right then and there at the end of the interview, he definitely had to come back on because it was such a great chat, and it was cut short by, just time limits. So listen to that, and then on the other end, we have another interview.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
That was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
No.
You're awesome.
No.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to Everything is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev, and this is a show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This week's guest, he contacted me to see if he thought what he wanted to chat about and had to talk about fit the show. And, well, first of all, there's really no criteria for this show. People that listen to the show know, my end game is a good conversation. And whether that's literally, anything from tacos to an actual product or, a band you're in or whatever it is that you have to talk about, I'm in. So, but when someone contacts me with something that's in my wheelhouse, as far as nerdy things and geekdom go, I'm in even more because it's a conversation that I feel is going to be good. And this is another one of those little bonus episodes you're going to be getting where, I truly know very little about this week's guest, and which is not far from the norm. But we have a author and he's part of the nerd life. He's a Nerdist fan, obviously, and we'll get into that here. And he just has an interesting take on something that we're going to share with you today. Ladies and gentlemen, and I always forget to do this with my bonus guest episodes, is to officially get how to pronounce their names.
I'm curious to see what you're going to do. I'm not going to tell you until after you butcher it. So go ahead. Okay.
I feel like I'm going to get the last name, oddly enough.
The last name is easy because it's like Calvin, right? But
okay, maybe not. We'll see. Okay. Tal Klein?
Yeah, good job.
Oh, nice.
Usually people go for tall or tail or tal or something like that. The way I always tell people is that it's an Israeli name, so normally the actual Hebrew pronunciation is tal, but nobody says tal in English. So I just decided to settle into Tal like pal, because they always say okay, you know how to say everybody knows how to say pal. Just stick a T at the front of that, and we're all set.
That's a great way to do it. And I'm glad you're probably the most unique name I've had on the show. It's very American, not on any reason besides that's just who I happen to get on the show. So it's actually I'd say I'm terrible at pronouncing any words, let alone names. So when I get something right, especially like this, it's a little pat on my back that I give myself.
You know what I do that's a particularly bad habit along the same lines is whenever anybody gives me their name, I always condense it to a single syllable because my name is a single syllable name.
Yeah.
So and some people are terribly offended by it. So with you, it's like you'd be Kev and my, and then Roberts are always Robs and Phillips are Phil.
Yeah.
And some people are really offended by that. It's really funny because in my universe, I can't be offended by it because people always think my name is short for something.
Yeah.
So it's just really, but for some reason my brain will always condense somebody's name into a single syllable, and occasionally people get offended by it. So I understand. I'm sympathetic to your problem.
I see, and that's funny because most people go for the natural Kevin, like my full name, which is, and I'm pretty sure I introduced myself on the show as Kev. It's actually, after 30 plus years of being alive, I kind of forget how I introduce myself these days. But I prefer since birth Kev. Like it's, I guess because my area, I live in the Philly area, just outside of Philly, and there's a lot of Kevins in this area. So I've always gone the other way. So just call me Kev. It's easier. I know you're going to talk to me instead of someone else. So I prefer the one syllable, to be honest.
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What I know you have a book called Too Many Controllers, which is a series of short stories that you have on inkshares.com, which I do want to get into a little bit, and also you're part of a contest that I'll let you get into in just a moment. But tell us a little bit about Too Many Controllers before we go anywhere else.
Sure. So Too Many Controllers, it's not my book. I'm just one of the authors in the book. We have a collection of 15 authors, each of which are contributing a short story to this anthology. And Too Many Controllers is an entry in the Nerdist video game contest on Inkshares. And it's tough to not explain what Inkshares is and while explaining what the book,
go for it.
Be, but and we can get deeper into Inkshares later, but Inkshares is basically a crowdfunding platform for books, but it's a very unique crowdfunding platform. It's not like supporting a book on Inkshares. It's very, very, very different from supporting a book on, say, Kickstarter or Indiegogo, because Inkshares itself is a publisher. So they're actually a publisher. They're distributed by Ingram, which is like one of the biggest book publishers out there. And so these contests and also Inkshares in general, it works by, if you crowdfund your book and you get more than 750 pre-orders of your book, they actually give you full publishing. So you'll be in bookstores. You go through normal developmental editing, the full process to develop, like lots of editing, the cover design, like basically the full book publishing process as if you were going through a traditional publisher. And it's just absolutely amazing because I think it's a profound difference than anything else that exists out there. I think people call them like a hybrid crowdfunding platform because really, I mean, they're just a publisher who's decided to do away with the sort of editorial control over which authors and what books get published, and instead turn that over to an audience. And if a book shows that it's got enough of a market demand for it, then they just take their own personal bias out of whether it should be published or shouldn't be published.
That's see, I love that. This show we have a mix of indie artists, and I use that term from authors to musicians to podcasters to whatever. And my best friend is a self-published author, and to be a person who like kind of promotes indie, this Inkshare, like it sounds like a great kind of happy medium between self-publishing and trying to get published through the mainstream way of things.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So my previous book, the way I got into Inkshares is actually I won the contest before this one, which was a Geek and Sundry contest. Okay. And I won that with a book called The Punch Escrow, which is about teleportation and stuff like that. But what's cool is I won the contest, and now the book is being published by Geek and Sundry, and I've also now have a writing gig for Geek and Sundry, which is like one of the it's Felicia Day's site.
That's super cool.
Yeah, and so they really, all these things it's a huge opportunity for an author like myself, like who's just starting out, because I would not necessarily recommend everybody doing this, but I actually had a book deal on the table that I left to go pursue the Inkshares contest, because when you write science fiction, one of the hardest things to do with science fiction, especially as a new author, is the marketing piece. How do you get people to invest? Because it's such an oversubscribed genre.
Yeah.
You know, and you'd spend a lot of marketing effort trying to get to the Geek and Sundry and Nerdist community. Like, you probably spend the majority of your marketing dollars trying to reach these people. So, you know, when I saw the opportunity to you know, actually go under their umbrella, you know, it was awesome. And so with this, you know, a lot of the guys and girls who are published, who are contributing to this anthology, they've either already published a book on Inkshares or have won other contests on Inkshares. And so these are sort of like veterans of the Inkshares process, and they really know how to work this, which is probably why we're doing so well. And obviously, you know, we need more support for sure. But you know, it was really cool. Like, we have a Slack channel where you know, we just talk to each other, and somebody just had this idea when Nerdist posted this new video game contest. They wanted books that are inspired by video games. A bunch of us were like, yeah, you know, I don't have a book about video games, but I have a short story that I've been writing. And it was unbelievable how, you know, so many of us just sort of chimed in, and we were all kind of had like these short stories that we were working that were related to this genre that they kind of threw out there. We were expecting, you know, they always change up what the contests are about. There have been like fantasy and, you know, mystery and young adult and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's just really, really cool. And it's been fun to sort of work through the process with all these other authors yeah, so you know, we're doing really well, but you know, I definitely want to draw as much attention as possible to the contest. I think there's other really good books in the contest as well that are worth gander. I
got to tell you, you've really turned me on to Inkshares because I write a little bit as well for my buddy. My buddy created a whole world that he writes. It's like a fantasy genre. And like I've bookmarked. I'm interested in the short stories that you're contributing to here with this book. So I've bookmarked this page so I can officially pre-order a book because I definitely want to give it a read myself. But I totally want to learn more of Inkshares. Like, I'm sure tomorrow after talking to you, I want to go down that Wikipedia rabbit hole of like let me look at Inkshares and see what it's all about. So it sounds like an amazing platform for authors.
I mean, it's pretty new, so I don't know how deep the Wikipedia entry is going to be. I mean, but you know, I'll tell you what. You know, the authors that have gotten published on there are really. I mean, they wrote really very high quality stuff, and as I said, they go through the full editorial process that they would go through in a major publisher. So either way, what comes out of Inkshares is not going to be, you know, the sort of stuff that you normally associate with self-publishing and that kind of thing. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so, you know, I want to hear a little bit about how you got into writing, because it's your you have a book before this. That was your first book, correct?
Yes.
So how'd you get into writing, and why science fiction?
You know, it's funny. I've gotten that question before, and my answer is weird in that I never thought that I would write a science fiction book. I always wanted to write a book, and I always thought I would write a kind of like either like a sort of satirical mystery book or something like that. And I've started. I had a lot of false starts. Anybody who's either an author or an aspiring author probably sympathizes with you know, having a great idea, really, you know, getting everything going, and then reaching a wall. You know, and I've hit those walls several times. And honestly, I'm a busy guy. I've got a job, so like when I hit a wall, it's really tough for me to push myself. This book, the Punch Escrow, at least, it came from a conversation I had with a guy about how teleportation worked. And he basically explained it to me very simply. He said, you know, whenever Scotty was teleporting Captain Kirk from one place to another, he was killing him in one place and then playing him back in another.
Oh.
And for some reason that like really struck a note, because I never really considered, you know, teleportation is just one of those things you just assume is going to happen. It's going to be a thing that happens in the future, but I never really digested how it would work. And so I started talking to my friends who are physicists and stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, that's the problem with teleportation. It's not really a transportation technology. It's more of a replication technology.
like that one sentence or two as a pitch, and you've like sold me. Like that's a genius idea for a story. Like just going into that science of it. I don't really have a question. I interrupted you. Go ahead. Like I really like that idea. Is what I'm trying to say.
What I found was but your reaction is actually that's the reaction I get when I tell people about this, right? So I started writing a book about it using a lot of the science behind it because I really dug the science of how it works. And in general, if you think about humanity's history with transportation, we've always been afraid of new transportation. Like when trains were introduced, this is an absolutely true story. When trains were introduced, there was a movement of people who were seriously concerned that people's organs would fly out of their bodies because the human body would not be able to withstand moving at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Airplanes is another. I mean, just think about this. Like, who wants the? We're going to put you in a thing in the sky.
Yeah, I still think that. Like, it's. I mean, and I've traveled a bunch for old jobs, and I still have never gotten over my fear of flying, and I still have that concept of like, why would I go in that thing in the sky? Like, it is. Yeah. And I'm not. I guess I don't have an official fear. So people that have the official fear, I can only imagine how they're feeling in a. I know it's probably safer than driving. I know that's like a study that's been done, but I'm not in control. I don't think we're meant to be in the sky. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like in the early days of all these new ways to transport yourself, that's a logical thought.
Or self-driving cars now, right? Yeah. I mean, everybody's scared of self-driving cars, and so I think once you start thinking about it, like there's sort of like 5 big problems around teleportation. One is definitely the science of like how do we even pull this off, right? Yeah. The other one is sort of the anthropological. How do we digest what it does as a society? You know what I mean? Like how do we decide that that it's okay to get vaporized in one place and then replayed somewhere else? The other one is political. So like let's say we even digest the anthropological aspect of it. There's the legality associated with things, and what if something goes wrong? Who has the right to the identity of the person that was teleported? Like all these kind of like really big religious. Religion is another one. Philosophical, existential nature. Like when you show up at the other side, there's this big old philosophical problem called the ship of Theseus, and it's actually cool. It's really fast. The whole idea is that there's this big hero. His name is Theseus. He goes over to the island of Crete and defeats the Minotaur. So he's a big hero. Okay, comes back to Greece with his posse and his big wooden ship. And in honor of him, they decide to preserve his ship they preserve it for several centuries. So several centuries later, this guy comes along and he goes and he's like, "What's this? What's this ship?" And they tell him it's the ship of Theseus. This is the guy who beat the Minotaur. He's a legend, right? And he goes, "Well, that happened 300 years ago." And he's like, "There's no way this is his ship." And they're like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, it's a wooden ship. So, you've got it on the water. The wood surely would have deteriorated and rotted by now." And they're like, "Well, no. As each ore rots, we just replace it with a new one." Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Well, so would you say at this point every ore has been replaced at least once?" And they say yes. And he goes, "Well, that's not Theseus' ship. It's one that looks like it."
Yeah. I'll tell you. If originally you started like when you first said that you had a book about teleportation, I would never have thought that it would be like smart, like smart science. Not I don't know. Like when I write quote unquote. I'll say I'm a storyteller. I don't like calling myself a writer because I don't believe that I can actually write. I know I can tell a story. So when I'm writing this story down, like it's just a fantasy story, but to me it feels like it's such a dopey thing, and I love that something as dopey, I guess, as teleportation you took so seriously and and like got sciencey with it. Like that's amazing. Like, again, that's the 2-sentence pitch of sold me on it. It's incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to write, and and it's the response to it has been phenomenal. I mean, it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, as when you first mentioned it, I punched it up so I could take a look at it, and it's definitely going to be another thing that I think you sold at least one more to me, because I don't. When someone can tell a story, like science fiction is kind of more my wheelhouse than fantasy, which is weird because that's kind of the genre I write in. Mm-hmm. But science fiction's always been cooler to me. Whether I've never been a Trekkie, but like a Star Wars and that's about it. Star Wars. I mean, I guess everything can be considered science fiction. Depends on how much you want to really break it down. But I like Doctor Who. I'm a huge fan of. So in I see. This is what happens when I get into a good thought. I lose it.
Doctor Who's an interesting one, right? So Doctor Who's a great story and stuff like that. But I'm the type of person who looks at it and I'm like, how does the TARDIS work?
Yeah. I've never gone that deep, but that is totally like I've read and I don't have it in front of me. I think I have it at my desk at work, but I have like a little blue book from Doctor Who that's like a TARDIS. I think it's like written like a TARDIS manual, I think, but also telling like a story about Doctor Who at the same time. And
have you ever seen Donnie Darko?
Yes.
What do you think of Donnie Darko?
Now I'll say this by saying that, and it's probably going to be a movie I watch very soon now that you bring it up. I haven't watched it in years, but
that's fine.
I'm a fan of it, and right now I probably couldn't tell you the full plot. That's how long it's been that I've seen it, but I do remember liking it, and it's time travel. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of. It's a sort of like it's one of those like it asks like the big questions, but and like it's very like a kind of like a very hipster movie.
Yeah.
And it basically it's like the protagonist gets to decide if he can choose either to save himself or save the world.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yes, and that is another movie that takes some sort of science, whether of time travel or whatever, and it takes it seriously and answers. And that was my original thought. I love when someone takes something that can be considered silly or fantasy or whatever and
takes it super seriously. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. That's always a fascinating piece for me. And hence the reason I have a dopey little book that tells me like the way the TARDIS works or whatever.
Which is funny. So that's what I'm saying. Like for me, like that's where I get really deep into how this kind of stuff works, and that's why Donnie Darko was like an amazing movie, because if you read into a lot of the canon that was developed prior to the movie, it's amazing how every single thing in that movie was so extensively thought out and researched that it's on the face of it, it's basically like it's a simple. I mean, it's not a simple movie, but it's like you could easily pass it off as being just this sort of arbitrary, young adult, angsty teen movie with a bunch of weird stuff in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you dive deep into it, it's like this crazy deep movie. There's another one that I really like. Have you ever seen Joe versus the Volcano?
No, I have not.
So Joe versus Volcano is written by the guy who wrote like Moonlighting, and on the face of it, it's a movie with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, and they traditionally, at least when I'm a Gen Xer, so there's like a Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movie every few years, for a while.
In fact, one was playing in my living room the other night. That I have a 4.5-year-old son who was sitting there watching. I forget which one it was, but he was sitting there.
There's so many of them.
But he's sitting there watching it. I'm like. And I called out to my fiance. I said, "Did you let him watch this?" And she's like, "No, I just had it on watching it." I'm like, "Okay, this is," and he was like into it.
Nice. Well, they're movies. They're very accessible movies. But the thing about Joe versus the Volcano is like, compared to something like A Sleepless in Seattle or any other movie out there, like it's this incredibly deep movie about like this person and the existential crisis that he faces, like when he thinks he's going to die, and like. I mean, the movie ends up being a little bit too tongue-in-cheek in the way that it handles, I think, the material. But it's just apps like if you dive into it and you really like take it beyond face value, it's incredibly deep. That's why I really liked, teleportation has been a mechanism in science fiction forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
And people just always are like, oh, of course they're teleporting somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of times people mix it up with teleportation with time travel and like two completely different,
Yeah.
And it's been really, really fun to write. Another one that I really like is artificial intelligence.
I've never seen that one.
No, I mean. Not the movie,
Okay. I was gonna say,
but like as a thing that like people use it as a futuristic thing. Like there's AI.
Yeah, and I've seen that done really, smartly as well. And I am fascinated with that as well, because it kind of goes back to like the self-driving car, like.
Well, what I like about it, I'm a talker, so I'm sorry if but feel free to talk over me.
No, not a problem. Yeah, you're one of the guests that are that can match me. I'm impressed.
So AI, the main thing that I feel like the big mistake that we as humans make with artificial intelligence is we assume that we anthropomorphize it. We assume that it's going to be like us. Mm-hmm. And so the story I wrote for Too Many Controllers is kind of like. In fact, the closest you could get to that is, have you ever seen Her, the movie Her?
Oh, I'm such a terrible science fiction nerd. No, I have not, but I've heard wonderful things about it, and it's on I have a list of movies that I always hear about that I'm like, oh, I need to see that. So it's on my list. I've heard wonderful things. I mean,
if you're a science fiction nerd, I'm telling you, that is probably one of the best science fiction movies that's been made, like, in a long time. Yeah. Anyway, the big idea is that at some point, they create like this AI it's like your phone. I'm going to do a little bit of a spoiler for you.
Okay, that's fine.
But they create this AI for your phone, and everybody loves it. And this guy literally like falls in love with the AI app on his phone, and but it also at some point the movie just shifts. And the AI on his phone, the artificial intelligence component, transcends beyond humanity. Like, it doesn't care about humans anymore.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't care. It's not even like a Matrix type of scenario where like we're fuel to it or whatever. It just moves on to pursue higher things because we just can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And it starts to merge with other AIs and stuff like that. So it's been this really, and I think that is. The ability to take something like the singularity and move it away from like a sort of a HAL or our perception of Skynet or something that would treat humans like humans would treat humans, and instead think of it from an actual how would a program that was artificially intelligent and had access to infinite resources. What would it do?
Yeah, they're the questions that, God damn, you are definitely someone that we could talk for hours, dude. And for that reason alone, like, we're gonna have to reconnect and do like a full on normal episode, because I have many times. These episodes that I book go, supposed to be 15, 20 minutes. We can go 2 hours. And I feel like that you are one of those guys. So I do want you. So let's get a couple plugs out there.
Sure.
For both yourself, where people can find you on the net, for Too Many Controllers, and whatever else you have to plug.
Sure. So, Too Many Controllers is the thing that I'm plugging right now. I mean, the easiest way to find it is just go to inkshares.com, click on contests, and under contests, you'll see the Nerdist video game contest, and click on that. And hopefully we'll still be in first place when you check that. And it's very, very easy to just, click through and pre-order a copy. There's 3 different flavors you can pre-order. You can pre-order the ebook. It's only like $10. It's cheaper than buying a cup of coffee, at Starbucks. There's a $20 option that gets you a book that will be signed by all the authors and will probably be a collector's edition. Because I'm telling you, some of these authors are going to go on to great things. I'm telling you, these guys are just unbelievable. They're so talented, and the stories that I've been reading. I mean, I'm just watching them write the stories because we share a Google Drive, it's been blowing my mind. I mean, this is some of the best new science fiction that I've read, in my life, and I love science fiction. I mean, I read about 2 books a week.
Oh wow!
And
I wish I was on that level. I can barely read a book every couple months.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it. Yeah. And there's like so much good stuff coming out too. Yeah. But I mean, just so much good sci-fi. And if you ever want to do a podcast episode just on new sci-fi books, I mean, I could do that all day long.
Oh, we're totally there. We'll talk tomorrow. We're gonna book you for a full episode soon.
Because there's just so much. We are in a really, really good time for science fiction. But anyway, so I'm really excited about it. Some of the books are funny. Some of the books actually are nonfiction. Some of the stories are nonfiction.
Oh wow, cool.
There's just a really rich collection of people, and the whole idea is it's loosely tied around this video game, this notion of video games.
Okay.
So it's really exciting, and also check out some of the other books in the contest. I mean, there's some really, really good books in the contest, and I think that they're all worth a gander.
And you know what? And something that we say on this show when we have like indie authors that are or indie artists. Like anything that you can do to support an indie artist, like all you literally have to do is maybe skip that pack of cigarettes for the week, or skip that meal for the, you don't have to eat McDonald's today or whatever it is. Like if you skip 1 or 2 little things that you normally do every single day or week, you can easily help support an artist that like Tal here that's got a book on Inkshares and help get them to A, win the contest, and B, more important I think, is get some awesome content out there. I love indie is like the whole mantra of the show.
Too.
So
yeah, I do too. I mean, the way when I started promoting the Punch Escrow, my last book, the first few people that I approached, I basically would send them a text message and I would ask if I could borrow $10,
mm-hmm.
and they'd say yeah, and then I would send them the URL to buy the book.
Oh, that's great! Oh, that is another genius way. Dude, I am right. That one is getting stolen.
Because I mean, like, which of your friends would not lend you $10?
Exactly. Yeah. That's an amazing way to do it. That's really cool. Yeah. All right. And is there anywhere on the net that people can find you if they want to talk to you?
I'm on Twitter. I'm Virtual Tal on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. Whiskey Delta. What is it? What Whiskey Tango Delta. So Facebook.com/Whiskey Tango Delta.
Okay.
I think it's like What the Deal or something it used to be.
Okay.
But probably Twitter is the easiest way to find it. Just Virtual Tal on Twitter.
Very cool. Thank you for doing the show. And we are definitely this is the interview that I always love. The ones that I instantly want to say, let's find a time to talk again, because I love conversation. I love talking geek pop culture, and I feel like we can find a way to, we'll need to clear 2 hours for us to talk. I think I feel like that's where this could end up. So thanks for doing the show. Everyone out there, make sure you check out inkshares.com and click the contest. Check out the Nerdist one, and Too Many Controllers is the one. Check out the other ones, but right now I'm officially going to say it. If you got to pick one, pick Too Many Controllers. And check out the Punch Escrow if you got some time. You've been listening to Everything is Awesome right here on awesomepodcast.com. Thanks once again to Tal Klein for being on the show, and I can't wait to have him back on because it was such a great conversation. As you heard, you could hear how into what I was. So we will have him back on the show. I just want to chat with him. He's one of those guys that I can talk to for a very long time, have an interesting conversation with. Coming up next is Jason Mezilis. I'm not good at this last name. Let me pull it up in my notes. I was going off memory. Let's pull it up in my notes and make sure I got it right. First name, Jason Mezilis. I think I just said the same thing twice in a row there, but he is a musician, very talented musician, who is also a pop culture geek, and has, ties to the geek world with his massive comic book collection. And we had another, this is another very cool conversation that went a little bit longer than we normally do. And for this bonus Happy 4th of July episode, you're getting normally we keep these episodes to an hour, but you're getting a 2-hour episode out of this. We are going to have Jason back on too, because there was a bunch of stuff that we didn't even get to in our conversation that I would like to touch on when he has more time. He's a busy guy, so it was hard to, it took us a while to pin this interview down. So we'll pin another interview down with him, and it will be just a great conversation because there's so much more to talk about. All right, so here is my interview with Jason right here on Everything Is Awesome, only on awesomepodcast.com. Welcome to this week's edition of Everything Is Awesome. I'm your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. This week's bonus guest, yes, this is going to be a bonus episode, mainly because I booked too many of these things is what happens. I booked too many interviews, and I didn't the episode that was supposed to come out a couple days ago for you guys. I completely missed the deadline. So the way I make that up to you is I just give you more things to listen to. So this week's guest is a musician, and from what his lovely publicist has told me, an all-around geek. I've been told that he knows every little detail about any kind of geekdom you're going to throw his way. And that you should, you should expect that if any questions you have, he'll have the answer to. That came from the man himself. He has an album that's coming out later. We're releasing this, in a day, in 24 hours. He'll have an album out that he'll, I'm sure, tell us about sometime in this hour. And we're going to have an awesome conversation. It's one of those ones where I know as little as I can, and I hope that we have an awesome conversation about it. And as you all know, I never prep to properly pronounce names on this show. So let's see if we can take a stab at welcoming Jason Achilles Mezilis.
that would, you just put some southern drawl on it and you got it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was actually. I'm kind of impressed.
Holy crap! That's see for the last week or two. That's I think I'm 3 for 3 now. Wow! Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you. I'm actually that intro was. I don't feel like I should say anything else. I think that was about the best it's going to get. All
right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. Yes, thank you for doing the show. We've been trying to make this happen over the last, I think, a week and a half, 2 weeks, and we got it in just at the end of the wire here, the 11th hour. But yes, thank you for doing the show. What sold me was, let's see, I forget. I'm trying to see if I can
pull it. Was it that bag of money that ended up on your doorstep? It was the bag
of money that, no. Yeah. What sold me was, where was it? I swear she said something about a massive comic book collection.
Oh, yeah. That's at a secret undisclosed location.
Well, okay. So before we get into all that, for the benefit of myself and everyone listening, tell me a little bit about yourself. I don't know. Are you a musician first, or is there something else you consider yourself first?
Well, there's probably a lot of things I consider myself. Musician by trade. Yeah. I went to school I got a degree in music. I started, with classical piano when I was a kid. And to my parents' chagrin, stuck with it as a career for, forever, basically.
Now, were they supportive in the beginning, and then as you got older, did they think you had to get a real job, or?
They might have been regretful for being as supportive as they were, but yes, they've got nobody to blame but themselves. My father was a musician. Actually, okay. He was a classical guitarist. He's a Greek immigrant, and but he was so good. He was actually he was so good as a classical guitarist. It kind of steered me away from guitar as an instrument for the first half of my life. It just seemed impossible, you know.
So what's your?
Well, I started on piano, on classical piano, and then I eventually picked up guitar, but that was because of Van Halen records, not because of Segovia. And then I studied composition in theory, and eventually landed in Los Angeles, where I live now, and I have a recording studio here. Oh, very cool. And I slum around with the rest of the musicians in this town. So are you a solo act, or are you part of a band? Well, I have a band that I play in called Owl, and we're like a trio. I guess you call it a power trio. Okay. The singer of our band, his name is Chris Wise. We were good friends before we ended up in this band together, and he's also the bass player. He plays bass for a lot of like right now. He plays bass with Ace Frehley from Kiss. Okay, very cool. Before that, he was in the Cult for many years. He's played with like Ozzy and a whole list of amazing. An actual rock star. So I have that band Owl that I play with, and then prior to that, there was a band called Black Belt Karate as well. And basically, when Black Belt Karate split up about a year and a half ago, is when I decided to give this sort of solo instrumentalist thing a shot. So Owl is continuing. It's an ongoing band, but we have a lot of time in between things because of everybody in the band doing different stuff. Yeah. So, so now I'm making solo instrumental music, and it sounds, I don't know, it's cool, though. People seem to like it. Well, so, it's weird when I sit down and talk to a musician because, like... You and me both. I'm more of a talk person, like, so... And what I mean by that is like when I sit down and put the radio on, like for as long as I can, as long as I've driven. So I'm 30. I'll be 32 this year. So for close to 16 years, I've had a more natural instinct to put on talk radio. That's all I listen to on the radio is talk radio in the same way. Yeah. So like I'm a talk, and like the when 06 or right around then when podcasting became a thing, like my mind was blown because it was this world of like I can literally just listen to talk from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep. You're having a listen to a goddamn like pretentious musical note for the rest of your life. Yeah, well, and so and where my music. Did I lose you? I'm here. You did drop out a little bit. I expect that to happen from time to time, but we'll work through it. We'll work through the. We're good. Yeah, technology is in our grasp. Yes. So for me, music, I've always been like. Obviously, I have a few of my mainstream bands that I've liked over the last couple decades here, but I'm more of like. Tell me. Well, let's see. So, I'm not. I guess I'm not ashamed of them. I'm a fan. Like I'm a Bon Jovi fan. Does your audience know this, by the way? Well, as we're getting into this. Yeah. Well, okay. So, interestingly enough, the last time music came up, like where I got into what I like to listen to, is I don't know if you know Erin McGathy. She's the host of This Feels Terrible, Human Conversation. She was on Harmontown. She was married to Dan Harmon, who created Community for a brief period of time. She was on Community. She's she's known for like live performances and stuff out in LA, actually, out west there. Busy lady. Yes. She's going on tour. We're not here to talk. She had her hour to shine. As much as I would love to talk about Erin McGathy for another hour because she's like an idol of mine. This is about you, Jason. So, well, I too am awesome. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Everyone on this show is awesome. I'm not allowed to have unawesome people on the show. It's in the name. But the last time I got into my musical taste was with Erin McGathy, and I talked about Bon Jovi, which I like that era of music. I'm a fan of like. Well, Bon Jovi is, they've gone through quite a few eras, actually. Yes, yeah, and I'm not. Though we do associate them with a very specific one. They actually lasted well into the 90s and beyond. Yes, I'm actually. I feel like Alice Cooper backstage right now, educating about the Indians to Wayne and Garth. I am probably more of a 90s Bon Jovi fan. Oh yeah, so it's my life.
Yes. That and 90s is kind of like my music. Every now and then I'll say 80s is like I had some stuff there, but really 90s. And a few weeks ago when the embarrassed, actually I think by the time this episode airs, it's actually, I might be spoiling this because I think this is going to air before the Aaron McGathy episode. But I got it. So a spoiler for next week's episode, or for the next episode with Aaron McGathy, we get into a little bit of conversation about how I had this Spice Girls phase.
I think everybody had a Spice Girls phase. It just not all of them were about the music.
I was, and I can't. I was, when I was a teenager, I was probably, I guess in maybe 9th grade. I can't remember what grade that era was, but I remember specifically liking the music like that, and to an unhealthy degree. It was, I look back and it's kind of silly, cause I don't know that I would listen to a song now and say, this is my jam.
Well, you got to understand that, the Spice Girls were genetically engineered for 9th graders to like them very much.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah, don't be ashamed. You had science, against you.
So to answer your question, yes, I have gotten into some of my musical preferences. I'm trying to think of modern day bands that I'm into. But see, ever since I've been podcasting on various shows since 2006. So almost a complete 10 years. I think June. I've actually probably already hit the 10-year mark. I think I started in the end of June in 06.
Well, congratulations.
So yes, a decade of being a failure at podcasting. It's fantastic.
You owe yourself a diamond-shaped piece of cardboard or something. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I should. That's what musicians get the platinum and diamond records. I'm just gonna get a cardboard version of that.
14 of those.
Oh. Okay.
No,
okay. I wouldn't be surprised because
I'd be a little surprised, but that'd be nice. Yeah.
Well, and see, so ever since I've been doing podcasting, I'm more of a fan of indie. I think that there's just more overall talent in the indie world, and I've always been a supporter of it. So even though I'm more of a talk guy, this is a long-winded way of saying, even though I'm a talk guy, I always love listening to, giving as much promotion and respect to indie artists that I can, because obviously you guys have to hustle 100 times more than the mainstreamers for far less listenership.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily that we're doing more work. It's just that there's a lot less people doing the work.
You're 100% accurate, and that's why. I think an indie musician, more than any other kind of indie artist out there, even an author or podcaster or whatever, I feel like you guys have the most hats to wear. On top of having, it's also one of the things that you have to just be talented at to go anywhere with it. Anyone can put pen to paper. Anyone can sit. I mean, I'm proof that anyone can grab a mic and talk into it. But I don't think anyone can just pick up a guitar and start playing it.
Well, unfortunately, I think more people try than should. But
I don't think I would disagree.
But it's interesting too how you take somebody like Katy Perry, who started as an independent artist here in LA, playing. I'm playing tonight at the piano bar, playing this crazy ragtime blues honky tonk thing with one of my artists that I record a lot. And we've been doing a residency there for years, play every Thursday doing this crazy piano stuff. Right around the corner is this little bar called the Hotel Cafe, and Katy Perry used to play there all the time herself, and, hustled and everything, and as an independent artist. And then got picked up, and obviously now she's, stratosphere superstar. Yeah. But by all accounts I've heard, she's one of the hardest working people there is out there. So, I think, I think where the division of talent, the perceived division of talent lies, is that when you get to be a bigger artist, it becomes a lot more about the production team in terms of the music and things like that. People hear this high level of production, and they sort of sometimes they can be dismissive of the song, or the song ends up being a songwriting team. So I don't think there's less talent, less necessarily, but I think things get spread out, kind of like we were saying, like there's just more people doing work, which is also a pain in the ass because then somebody's got to, manage all this. So I don't know. Personally, I actually have a tremendous respect for these mega pop artists, even though musically it's maybe not, but it's a different kind of talent. I think, when these songs get Grammys and a lot of times, the songwriters get rewarded for these songs. Sometimes I feel that the production team is really the ones that should be sort of, and what I think the production team gets when it gets Song of the Year, I think that's when they sort of get recognized. But it's just sort of like it's a transference of, there's a high caliber of performance and dedication. It just gets sort of transferred laterally to a different bunch of people. If that, I don't know, does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, I can, you can dissect that and
do we just put our audience to sleep?
I just I had a
puppies, cat videos.
That's
bikinis.
funny. It's so funny that's like still kind of like the go-to internet audience thing, is to the point where like I'm again, I don't like to call myself a writer. I've said this. There's a couple of themes to Everything Is Awesome here. One of them is we don't stay on topic. Another one is
we're doing a good job of that.
Yes. Another one is storytelling, which is usually a topic of conversation. And my love of indie. Like, they're the three things that are common here. So I never, I like to write. Writing is like, I talk about writing often because it's usually like, it comes up in conversation. But I never consider myself a writer. I consider myself more of a storyteller. And there was a point to that I'm sure will come back in 20 minutes or so. But I don't know. It's one of I lost the thought. So let's move on.
Something about comic books.
Comic books. There was gonna be an intelligent point. Oh, I think here it is. We go on many tangents that get serious. Maybe serious isn't the right term, but it's like an in-depth. We get in-depthy here on this show from time to time.
In-depthy is actually getting added to the 2017 Webster.
I hope so, and I hope they give me the credit.
They are going to give you the credit and no money.
That's fine.
You should be an artist.
I consider podcasting an art. Like I don't get paid for it, and I actively.
Isn't that more of a hobby?
Yes, it's funny. So another thing that most people would probably call a hobby of mine, but back in the day, I used to wrestle, like WWE style wrestling.
No kidding.
Yes, I was, and trained. Back in the 90s, there's this guy who was like the king of the independent circuits called Reckless Youth Tom Carter. And he's from out this way. And he trained me. Like he was under the farm division for WWE. He was under contract with them for a while. And then things didn't work out. And he eventually moved back around here. And I was trained by him. And
are you like physically monstrous or something?
No, not at all, dude.
You sound like a pretty friendly sort of guy I could have a beer at a bar with without worrying about getting killed.
No, you will not get killed. I am the way I like to describe myself, personality and looks wise, is kind of like a less famous, slightly thinner Kevin Smith.
Well, I would hate for somebody to say a slightly larger Kevin Smith.
No, yeah, I'm not larger at all. I'm thin. I'm definitely thinner. But
even Kevin Smith talks about how he used to be a slightly thinner Kevin Smith.
Yes, I probably, when he made Clerks, I'm even thinner than Clerks Kev, but.
No, he was good back then. Yeah, well, he always wore the black trench coat too.
Yes.
So
And
was it black? Wait a minute, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, or very dark gray.
I mean, the whole damn movie was black and white, so it's hard to.
Yes, in Clerks, it's hard to pinpoint it, but in the other movies, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a.
Well, yeah, because he was doing all the Batman shit, so he had to have been. Yeah.
But yes, so I'm not monstrous at all.
Segue. Give me your favorite Kevin Smith movie.
Chasing
very
Amy.
Quickly. Really? That's like the worst one.
What?
I mean, all the lesbian stuff aside, but like.
Really?
Yeah, it's like depressing.
Oh, so here, okay, this is another thing that comes. This is another theme of the show.
I mean, not worst, like badly made, but it's just not like I don't feel good when that movie ends. It's
see, but
like, oh,
that is the movie that I'll put. Like, if I ever feel like I need to cry, I'll put Chasing Amy on. Like,
so you're one of those people that watches Games of Thrones a lot, right?
No, I have not watched. I've tried to watch the first episode, have fallen asleep 3 times.
But Chasing Amy keeps you raptured, huh?
Yes, I love Chasing Amy. Now, I'd say like the movie of his that makes me laugh the most,
it's gotta be Mallrats.
Yeah, it's easily Mallrats.
That's the best.
But the movie, I don't know.
Jay and Silent Bob is actually not as it's pretty stupid, but it's got some pretty good moments in it when you go back
and oddly enough, so Kevin
watched as a rental. It's for those of us who still remember what rentals were.
I love it. So how old are you, if you don't mind?
I'm old enough to remember rentals.
Yeah, so that's like I have to assume. Based off, I used to do a show that was on stickcam.com. I don't know if you remember Stickcam.
I don't.
It was a site like Ustream, and I don't even know what's hip now for live streaming.
It's all this. I think this is it.
But stickcam.com was like the YouTube of live streaming. And we used to do a show on there. I did a couple shows on there, and our audience was like all teenagers. So assuming that my audience hasn't grown up with me, because why would they? I'm not. I haven't gotten any more mature. Then there's a bunch of people listening to the show that don't know what VHS is. They don't know rental stores, and they probably don't even know what CDs are. If we're gonna be honest.
I don't miss CDs at all. I'll tell you. I miss VHS. I don't miss CDs.
See, you know what? Because I've never been like when I was younger, I bought CDs because that's when I can't listen. I can't listen to.
They're just too fragile. You can you remember like cassettes. Okay, if you have a cassette in your car, you can throw it in the back seat, and unless it melts in 120 degree temperature, it doesn't really matter. CDs like you can't scratch them, can't sit on them. What's the fun of that?
Yeah,
you can throw them at each other.
What was your first cassette that you ever bought?
Def Leppard, Hysteria.
Oh God, I am,
and I was very proud.
By the way, I am a Def Leppard fan. I again haven't listened to them in years. But that was a band that was on. My uncle is only 16 years older than me, so we're pretty close in age.
You want a good story?
Yes, go for it.
I'm going to give you a good Def Leppard story.
All right,
okay.
Let's hear it.
So condensing the story, I ended up playing in a band here in Los Angeles with Vivian Campbell, who is the guitar player who replaced Steve Clark in Def Leppard.
Yeah.
And amazing guitarist. He was playing with Dio when he was 19, way back when. And we were in a band for a very short time. I was sort of filling in. So I think over the course of 2 years, we played 3 shows or something like that. But through that, Vivian, he's a really nice guy. He was always very cool to me. And Def Leppard was rehearsing for one of their tours here in the Valley. All the great rehearsal studios in Los Angeles, for the most part, are in the Valley. They're not in Hollywood because it's just cheaper, out there. So I go to pick up so he says, yeah, if you ever want to come down to a rehearsal, you're welcome to come down. I'm like, well, obviously I'm going to do that. That's amazing. This is, are you kidding me? So I had a guitar student at the time, and I go pick up my guitar student one day, and I say, hey, listen, we're not doing the lesson. I'm going to take you to a rehearsal of a friend of mine. And that's all I told him. I said, it's a band. I think you'll dig it. He says, okay, what are we going to see? I'm like, don't worry about it. Just this will be cool. And he's like, okay. So I take him, and we go, and we find this, rehearsal studio sort of in this unmarked building deep in the Valley here. And we go in, and what I didn't realize is that we were the only ones there. So we go in, and my student comes in with me, and there's this big stage. It's this big room. There's Def Leppard on stage rehearsing. There's a couple couches, and there's nobody there. It's just us and the band, and Vivian's like, oh, hey, yeah, have a seat. And we sit there and we watch him do their entire set.
Oh, that's so cool.
Just being him.
That's very cool.
And I think his jaw came off the ground about halfway into it.
That's cool.
It was, and there was like some pizza and some Cokes, and I think they're like the techs were there, and the roadies and people, because they were prep while the band is rehearsing the material. The guys are like, they're readying their own stuff for the tour, all the technical stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew a couple of those guys, but that was as a just as a fan and you not knowing what to expect.
That's cool. Yeah, it's
that was a good one.
I love when I either hear stories or am part of the story of like meeting someone that you're a fan of and it pans out right.
Those guys are all totally cool. Yeah, I'm always afraid to meet my heroes.
Yes, should be. Yeah, they can hey,
for good reason.
I always go back to Kevin Smith's story about meeting Bruce Willis and how horrible that experience was.
I haven't heard. Is that on one of his speeches that he's online things that he has?
Yeah, I'm sure if you Google Kevin Smith Bruce Willis, you can find a clip of it somewhere. It's when they did Cop Out. I think it was a Coen Brothers movie. Maybe not.
Yeah,
I forget who wrote it. It was.
I believe was that one passed up for a Grammy nomination? Or?
Yes, it was definitely
Grammy, Oscar, whatever.
Yes, it was passed up for all the awards. It was. It was not a Kevin Smith written movie. It was the first movie he went out and directed that he didn't write.
Is this one of those sad times when Kevin Smith tries to make serious movies?
No. It was a comedy. It was. Okay. So, do you remember The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg? So Cop Out was originally titled A Couple of Dicks, starring.
Why didn't that would have been so much better?
I agree. And I think the Blu-ray version is the subtitle is called that or something. But the original stars of Cop Out were supposed to be Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. And that was a Warner Brothers movie. And then something happened and they went to Sony and did The Other Guys while Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan did Cop Out.
Got it. All right.
And it is, you know what? I don't hate it. It pays tribute to buddy cop movies.
I don't know. Bruce Willis, even I don't know. He's just always entertaining. I feel like even if the movie completely sucks, somehow you're still okay watching him.
I agree. Now I liked I think Die Hard 4 was not the most recent one. Die Hard 5 was the most recent one. So
I kind of fell off on the Die Hard, to be honest with you, just because you're trying to follow up Mozart with Haydn. I don't know. They're okay, but Die Hard. John McTiernan is such a masterful action director that he did, you're talking about Die Hard, Hunt for Red October, and Predator.
Yeah.
I think all back to back. I mean, who's going to follow that?
And to me, Die Hard is one of those perfect.
It's a perfect movie.
Yeah,
there's 0% wrong with Die Hard.
It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. I'll fight anyone that says that it's not a Christmas movie.
Of course it's a Christmas movie.
I try to, and I always fail, but I like to do for Halloween because I'm a big Halloween fan. But for Halloween, I like to do 30 days of or 31 days of Halloween movies, and then in December I like to do 25 to 30 some days of Christmas movies. I usually average about 6 to 10 movies in that month.
That's a tough. The Halloween movies are all awesome because you can there's endless amounts of great horror films, but I mean, when you've got Bad Santa and you've got Elf and you've got Die Hard, and then you start to get into trouble. Well,
and see, I won't mind watching some of the bad Christmas movies. What originally turned me on to watching, I'm a fan of B horror movies. I think they're great. Well, there is such a thing as B Christmas movies that are so bad they're good. And the one that comes to mind is Santa with Muscles, starring Hulk Hogan, and I don't know who else because it was that bad of a movie.
What?
But it's Hulk Hogan. Somehow ends up being Santa or playing a mall Santa, or I forget that. It's so bad that like I watched it probably about 6-7 years ago now.
All right, I've got a request for you. At some point in this podcast, maybe at the end, you've got to put Hulk Hogan's theme song music
sure.
on here.
I will. You know what? Because you said it. I'll right here as we're talking. As I mentioned Hulk Hogan, you should hear the bed. You should hear a little faint.
So, my
music.
band, Black Belt Karate, was the name of my band. The
Oh,
band
God.
that split up before I went on to embark on my illustrious solo career here.
Yeah.
And we would use that song that you're playing now,
Yes.
hopefully.
Yes.
We would come out on stage to this.
That's amazing.
I want to be a Hulkamania. Yeah.
Oh, that
and
is.
he's kind of rapping. Maybe the rap's happening right now.
Yes. Wow, that is amazing. I am. I don't follow.
You are about to get sued. That's what you are doing. Yeah.
No. Because this is a news program ish.
Is this like fair use kind of thing?
Yeah, it's that's how I always roll. I don't run ads.
Let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, you know what? It's worked out for 10 years now.
Isn't he too busy getting? Isn't he in court for something anyway right now?
I think he just won. I think he took.
Oh, so he's back at the height of his powers. Yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah. No. See, we're talking over. I think if you talk over it, especially, I think you're safe. Even just keep talking, Phil. Yeah, no. I guess we're done now, right? Yeah, it's probably
Hulk's faded out now.
Yeah,
okay, we're good.
But I always love. It makes me smile that you came out to that music because I always love like throwing a little wrestling angle into anything that I do live. And fingers crossed, we are. And I think, but I should find out at the time of this recording tomorrow. By the time this airs. I've hopefully already found out, and I can say this, but I'm hoping that we've booked in Philadelphia. They do a podcast festival. I actually think that's a thing everywhere now. But we applied to do a live show for the podcast festival out here in Philly.
You have to come out in your wrestling outfit.
I still have some of my tights up in the attic, but the last one I wore, and I'll post it to Twitter.
This is not optional.
I can wear. So I have my Heartbreak Kid tights. I used to wrestle. My original gimmick was Heartbreak Kev, and I wrestled as basically a Shawn Michaels ripoff. And then I eventually had my own gimmick where I had my own tights. But the most recent outfit that I have got destroyed, and it was like a silver. It almost looked like a silver spacesuit. It was an awesome outfit that is just unfortunately dead. But I can probably find a pair of tights and wear them out to the live show.
I feel like there's three classes of people that can like have the conversation that you just had about talking about your tights. And you've got wrestlers, you've got superheroes, and you've got 80s rock guitarists.
Yes. And it's funny because there's this big thing that's out there now that women love, this LuLaRoe clothing line. That's
what is it?
LuLaRoe.
Okay.
And it's a clothing line. They're like, people know them for their leggings, I think. I'm still not 100% up on it. I just know that my fiance bought a couple leggings, and like they have kid ones too. And someone said something about my son they might get my son a pair of them, and like they looked at me like I'd be angry about it. I'm like, you're totally looking at the guy that used to wear tights and fake punch people. So if you're looking to me, I have a problem with someone wearing what's essentially tights. I'm not going to have that problem. So I'm a fan of I used to literally walk around town in them. We'd finish I started off in the backyard, as most. East Coasters do, at least, and
with a trampoline and an insurance policy.
No, I never did. I never did the trampoline. I started off.
You probably didn't do the insurance policy either, did you?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
I started off on the grounds. the very first thing I ever did was literally like, we didn't do any wrestling moves. We literally like punched, fake kick. Like we did the minimal thing that you could do to be a wrestler. But then we hooked up with these guys that did wrestle on the trampoline, and we combined the formats of actually wrestling and the ground, which was a bad idea.
That sounds comfortable, yeah.
We had a tarp down. So I mean,
a tarp. That's sure, okay.
Small
vinyl protection between you and the hard surface.
Yeah, I mean, and we made sure that those rocks were in the corners so that we didn't land on them in the middle of the ring. So we would use fake blood. Some of us were real idiots and would take blades to our foreheads. We would get all bloodied up, real or fake or whatever. And after we were done our matches, we'd go around the corner to 7-Eleven, still in our gear, and
bleeding out your skulls.
Yeah. So I always said that unless I'm getting paid $40,000 a year, I will not cut myself. So. But
for $40,000, it's open season.
Well, it's silly. I guess now like $40,000 isn't enough to do it. But
I mean, maybe there's just a little bit of adjustment for inflation.
But when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, like that's what I wanted to do. Like my dream, I was going to wrestle. Like I was going to, and I always said professionally.
You're sort of like Roddy Piper meets Iggy Pop. Eat some peanut butter and you're good to go.
Yeah, I was going to be. I wanted to professionally wrestle. I never said I want to go to WWE. I wanted to wrestle in front of a live paying crowd. And there's a couple local federations or whatever that were in our area that I wrestled for, or we created our own, and we eventually took our own gig out and toured the local scene here. And so, like, for me, goal accomplished. Now, to kind of round this conversation out, my fiance said it was a hobby. You weren't a professional. You didn't get paid, which
it kind of stings a little, doesn't it?
It does, because to me, I did get paid, but as one of the people that helped control it, I just always threw my money back in to put on the next show. So I consider it professional. I wrestled in front of a crowd that booed me, cheered me, whatever I needed them to do. And it was, most importantly, like a whole lot of fun. Like that was a time in my life when people say, you've wrestled? Like, that's stupid. I always go and say, I could have been doing drugs or something really bad. Like, I could have been a bad kid. I just fake punched people.
Well, it's the fake part that I think is the differentiation, right?
Well, see, and that's the thing. That, like, I like the term predetermined because I've had, as I'm sitting here doing this show, like I have to adjust my back every now and then from the year. Like I probably wrestled for almost a decade, from 16 to about 20. Probably 8 years.
You didn't get fucked up too bad. You can like still walk straight.
Yeah.
No major spinal injuries.
No. The worst I ever got it was I tore a bunch of ligaments in my ankle, and that's the worst I ever I got it. Which
it's not. I mean, that sucks, but not. Yeah, it's not like.
And I was like, I don't even think I was 18 yet, so it wasn't when I was doing it professionally. It was I got that injury for the backyard for the love of it. And so I was young. It healed.
What's worse, like football or wrestling, when it comes to destructive force on your body?
Well, I would imagine football probably ends up being worse because theoretically, as a wrestler, you're not looking to hurt each other. You're looking to put on a great show and make it look real while protecting not yourself but the other person. Whereas
like more like burly acrobatics or something.
Yes, and whereas football is more of I'm going to hurt the other person. So right. I would imagine that
football is a little more like politics.
Yes, yeah, I would imagine that's definitely the worst one. And I, even though my ankle, like my knees, I have like arthritis in my knees from it because we wrestled in the backyard.
But you're also 78 years old right now.
Yes,
you just sound younger.
Yeah, I'm just now starting to like wind down. I stopped wrestling last week, so I mean the arthritis, the broken bones that I got on a weekly basis. It was a lot of fun. That's all I could like, and that's my like. If anyone were like, if my son were to come to me and say, "I'm gonna wrestle in the backyard," the first thing I'd say is, okay, well, let me show you how to do it right so you don't kill yourself, because there are idiot teenagers that do it and light tables on fire and stuff, and can get.
They sure get a lot of hits on YouTube.
They do, and see, it's a shame that I wasn't part of.
Oh, maybe they're not as dumb as we think they are.
Maybe not. Yeah, we were about 5 to 10 years shy of the YouTube generation for our wrestling. Because we waited until we had a license from the state of Pennsylvania to light our tables on fire.
Oh yeah, you can't wait for things like that.
Yeah, not in the YouTube generation. The kids want it now, and it's amazing. Like, we did do dumb things like jump off the roof of a shed. We in the state of Pennsylvania where I live, it's illegal to break fluorescent light bulbs.
You're kidding me.
I don't know. It might be illegal everywhere now, but 10 years ago, I didn't think it was.
It's like un-American to have a law like that.
Well, I mean, we would go to the hardware store and buy bulks of them because the effect of them shattering is amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome.
We used to do that was probably the dumbest. That and the fire table were the dumbest things we did.
There's a band out here, and I can't remember. So the drummer of my last band now plays with Dweezil Zappa, and he tours with him a lot. And I think it's his. I want to say it's maybe even his drum tech for when he's touring with Zappa. This guy has a band out, and I saw him, and part of their set is that they smash each other with these things.
That's
and there's blood everywhere, and you know, they're insane.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like, I mean,
it's awesome, but it's, you know, it's a little hard to watch sometimes. But it's the kind of thing where, like, hey, like, kind of like hey, I didn't get it. You didn't get me enough blood squirting out of my, artery in that last hit. Take another swing, kind of thing.
Well, and that, like I said, like, I never even when I started getting paid for wrestling, which again was like $25 a show, so that's why it always just went right back into it. I even then I was like, I'm not, like, if I bleed, I bleed, but I'm never gonna, like, have a razor blade tucked into my wristband to cut myself later. Because it was still like, and in hindsight, I was correct, because it was like, I'm at 32 now, or 78, whatever you want to choose to believe. Like, I don't have scars all over my head like, all these wrestlers do from doing it when they weren't getting paid, or when the WWE was in that era of, blood all the time.
I got a buddy out here in one of the bands. There's so many bands in LA. This guy Joe Menente is his name, and he's a professional comedian. But he had a band. God, I can't remember the name of the band. Glory Stompers, I think. Anyway, he would take a stapler, like industrial power stapler, and you would throw up money on stage, and he would staple it to his forehead.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And he would get mad if, like, he didn't hit, like, the right spot, if it just went in and just kind of drizzled, like he wanted it, like, spurting.
No, yeah, I've never been that guy. Yeah, you know what though? I did the one thing I considered to do was the thumbtacks, the Mick Foley. Let's throw some thumbtacks on the ground, and you'll backflip me, Ric Flair backflip me onto the thumbtacks. And I never did it because everyone said I was stupid for wanting to do that. But I thought that would be a cool way to do something that was like, for us would have been like hardcore, because, there was one guy that, like, juiced and took a blade to his head and went way too deep, way too long, had to go to the ER for it. So that was especially when I said, no, we're not going to do this.
Well, I mean, I guess it worked out.
Yeah, like I said, for me, like, I have the logo for we've called it Falls Township Wrestling, because it was the area we wrestled in. I have that logo tattooed on my body because it is probably at least in my teenage years, late teenage and early 20s. Like, that's definitely one of the most important parts of my life. Was that wrestling. And people said when I got that tattoo, you're going to regret it. You know what? I don't. I still. I mean, I'm 6. I've had the tattoo now for 14 years. I don't.
You don't have a tattoo of a thumbtack. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I could have done that. I could have done some, or like a pony. Like there's.
Ask me how I know that.
We are not going to tell. Okay, so I don't know how we got on this wrestling tangent, but we did. And we're going to bring it back to
I have no
you.
idea.
Yeah, let's go back to you for a little bit. Yeah,
but I was not a wrestler.
Yes,
I wrestled the school bully once. I took a wrestling class, and like this is like straight up out of your one of your like teenage angst comedy things where like we're in line and you're like they put you all in line facing each other, and I'm like, oh god, it's that guy. And sure enough, I get called up, and it's the fucking guy that terrorizes me all the time, and he comes up, and I have to wrestle this asshole. And of course, like I get put in the the bitch position, I guess. What do they call that one?
I don't see. I've never was into that. Like what's actually a talented wrestling. Man.
And then like now you're getting humiliated and like, oh god.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll pass on wrestling.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like I was always into like fake wrestling, WWE wrestling as a kid, and then kind of fell out of it for a little while, got back into it, and then eventually like said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to train in it and whatnot. But I was never into, I guess it's like, I guess they call it amateur wrestling is that, but collegiate wrestling maybe is another term for it. But I never was into that. I always in gym class, like was hoping like, please put me in health class, the rotation that I'm supposed to be doing wrestling.
Dude, there's nothing worse than the smell of another man's gym shorts shoved into your, face. Yeah. Like, oh god.
It's gym class for me was always unless like we were doing so my high school at some point we were able to.
If you could wrestle with the girls, that'd be something. But it just they don't do it like that.
No, they don't. And I mean. They may, with the as people become more liberal with the transgender thing, feeling, if you feel like this, they may allow it a little bit. Who knows?
Hey, they're going to have a whole third classification of dorms anyway. So there you go.
Well, I don't know where I was going. So where are you originally from? Out west, or are you?
I was born in Chicago, but I mean, I grew up most of my life in California. Okay. Yeah, I actually up in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Like San Jose. Where all your iPhones are.
Oh, yes. So you're right near Silicon Valley and
yeah, well, I grew up in Cupertino, which is actually the little town where Apple started. And when I first got my first iPhone, and you check the weather. They have the little weather thing, and it defaults to Cupertino. And I was looking, I'm like, holy shit, how does this thing know where I'm from? And I guess they all do that. So yeah.
I don't see. I was a late iPhone person. Like I was.
Yeah, this was back in the '60s. When Apple was first getting going. The 1860s.
1860s.
Yeah.
Do you happen to do stand up? Because you are a funny dude. Like most musicians I talk to don't have jokes.
Most musicians, some of them are knuckleheads. I don't know. I think they got to the point where they watched Spinal Tap and it wasn't funny to them anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's when that's not the point you want to be at.
Yeah. You sound like you're a dude that could definitely take like a stab at an open mic.
Yeah, well, that's the next step down from when the music career doesn't work out. Then I'll just go straight to having people yell at me on stage without a guitar to like.
Well, that's what I'm expecting. Now I know. Now I remember how we got into the wrestling conversation. I plan on making my entrance to the live podcast show in like true wrestling fashion of like getting a theme song out
absolutely have the girls come out with the numbers and everything and it's or wait, is that just boxing?
That's just boxing. Why
would they not do that in wrestling? That's like the best part of.
They may do it they don't do it in WWE. They may do it.
Are you gonna have a cape, or are you going with the whole Incredibles no cape thing?
Oh yeah, there's no capes. You can't do
no capes.
Cape.
No capes. Yeah.
So when did you go? Like when did you get?
By the
into
way,
producing?
The Incredibles, best animated movie of the last God, when was that? 10 years ago or something?
It was almost 10 years ago, if not a little longer. Yeah, yes.
Best animated movie in a decade.
And it is definitely the best Fantastic Four movie we've ever had.
Well, I mean, that's, Beethoven was a better Fantastic Four movie than any of the Fantastic Four movies.
It's I haven't seen the new.
And I don't mean Beethoven I mean Beethoven the dog.
Yeah, no, I knew where you were going.
Right.
I haven't seen the
Grodin,
new.
Right? Yeah.
I haven't seen the new Fantastic Four. I've heard that it's awful. It looked like it had an interesting take, but it definitely did not look good.
It astounds me how they get some of these movies so well done and others so just completely miss the point.
Well, and it seems like to me, when it comes to the Marvel stuff at the very least,
yeah.
I mean, give it to Marvel.
Pretty well by and large, I think,
Yeah, and I think that's where Fantastic Four is heading. Like, Fox has success with X-Men. I think it's time for them to let Fantastic Four go. Here's where I think Fantastic Four will work. Netflix. Like, do what they did with Daredevil and Jessica Jones.
Oh, Jessica Jones is great.
Yeah, I liked Daredevil season 1 more.
I haven't seen Daredevil yet.
Oh, my God. If you like Jessica Jones, dude, Daredevil season 1 and season 2 are fantastic.
I've heard that's good.
To me, season 1 of Daredevil is the best thing Marvel has put out in any medium they've done as far as live action goes. So
that's quite an endorsement.
Yeah, it is just so.
Once again, the big bag of money shows up.
Yes, I mean, when these studios, they know who to come to and who to pay off to get a good review.
It's not hard to find. All the contact information's right there.
Yeah. Now, if I was saying this about Batman versus Superman, you'd know I was getting paid.
I
haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. That's unfair of me. I have not seen it yet.
I saw the new X-Men movie, and it wasn't that good. Which was really disappointing because this is Bryan Singer.
Yes.
Who did such a fucking great job with the first two, especially the second one.
Mm-hmm. I agree. What did you think of Days of Future Past?
Well, it took me a while to warm up to the new cast, just because, I don't know, they did such a good job. With that first, especially with the casting with the first group of movies, right?
Yeah.
I think that Fassbender's amazing. I mean, he could take a shit and everybody would, The guy, the Professor X guy, what's his name?
James McAvoy.
Okay, so I think it took him. I think he settled into it after, with the second one. I think he settled into it.
Yeah.
And the Apocalypse is what, the third or fourth one now?
It's the third of the new series.
Okay, so the second one is the one with Wolverine going back.
Yes.
Yeah, which I mean, that was great. Plus, it's sort of like you have Hugh Jackman to sort of like pull these kids, into the. I really miss. Well, besides all the obvious reasons, Rebecca Romijn was so perfect as Mystique, and I just haven't really bought and especially the new cast now with who's the girl from Game of Thrones who's Jean Grey now in the new one.
Oh, I don't watch Game of Thrones, so I'm not the right person to ask. But I know
I
you're
don't know
talking
either.
about.
I just know she's on there, but I don't know, man. I just wasn't really. And
so I have not seen Apocalypse.
It's kind of like I don't know. So you saw Avengers, right? The Ultron.
Yes.
Fiasco, right?
Yes.
Where they made Ultron just sort of like an idiot.
Yes.
It's kind of like that. You have this sort of like extremely bad, extremely powerful, and extremely sort of wise. He sort of devoid of any sort of real motivation. Bad guy, like just sort of I'm evil. Ha ha ha. That doesn't really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the motivational impetus was just sort of like we're gonna kill everybody we're gonna destroy the earth to make a better like there's some sort of there's supposed to be some sort of underlying humanitarian cause at the end of all this. It just I don't know.
Well, I feel like the problem actually is Bryan Singer. Like I think at this point you just need fresh blood.
Phoning it. yeah, like he's kind of phoning it in at this point or something.
Yeah, because
like he's lost the spark for it.
I think he has a different vision. Like he,
because he was so on point before, man.
Well,
and
you know what?
So good.
Those movies, X-Men 1 and 2,
X2 especially is like it's like flawless. It's so good.
It's like he's still, I think, trying to make those type of movies, and I don't know that they necessarily. I don't think he's doing it right. Like I think he's trying to make those type of movies, but also kind of integrate the way people perceive comic book movies now, and the whole notion just in general of movies.
Well,
of
how
like,
do you think it's changed?
Bigger.
What's the perception? Yeah.
Well, so now back when X1 and X2 came out.
How long ago was that? What are we talking?
X1 was, I think, either 99 or 2000. So we're going back 16 years ago.
Okay.
And I mean, so for me, Days of Future Past, the second of the new trilogy,
right.
That to me was more important than, like, say, Avengers, because Avengers was cool because we finally, after the last like 6 years or whatever it was, we got to see all these characters come together.
Well, the first one was okay,
but
it was just the Ultron thing was idiotic.
But so that's just great for like the current day generation of comic book movie fans. But 16 years ago, I went to go see X-Men 1 in theater no less than 7 to 8 times.
Right. That was wonderful. Yeah.
So seeing the old cast come back into the story and them like officially making the new trilogy part of this huge universe of X-Men movies now, like that was for me my Avengers moment. I was so happy to see that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know why I brought that up, but yeah. So the movies back then in X1 and X2, like they weren't like the idea was, well, you can't make it too much like the comic book because no one's going to come see a movie full of people wearing yellow spandex. And I think 16 years ago that was right. Like you didn't have an audience that was necessarily comic book friendly. 16 years later, like you can make a commercial of a kid asking a girl out on a date with an R2-D2 unit to go see the new Star Wars movie. Like that was a commercial that happened in the last 6 months. That commercial wouldn't have been made 16 years ago. So we have this very geek friendly culture now where people praise like accuracy to the comic books. And I think Singer is trying to do that, but incorporate the old style of how he made movies, comic book movies, and I don't think they blend together. You have to go one way or the other.
The casting was so much. I just feel like the casting was a lot better before. Like
yes.
I think there's a certain. I think when the more success. I mean, this tends to happen in general. Like when somebody achieves a huge amount of success, particularly within the canon of a specific genre, like. Bryan Singer isn't just a successful director. He's a successful director in the medium of superhero movies now, right? So there's a certain mandate, I think, that maybe you start to feel where, like, you can make decisions that maybe in the past you would have second-guessed or said, you know what, people aren't going to buy that. Mm-hmm. Like a casting choice that's just, you know, physically so different from what you're used to. But you're like, they're going to believe it because I'm going to frame this story in such a fashion that, and it like, no, you still, I feel like that's what's missing. Like, you know, the casting choices are so essential.
Well, and look at Deadpool for that. Like the casting choices for Deadpool were so spot on.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And they took chances that, you know, I don't think Bryan Singer would have taken if he directed Deadpool.
Right.
Deadpool
changed a lot. I mean, Deadpool changed. Isn't like Wolverine's going to now put out like a crazy R-rated thing now because they're like, I get it. Comic book fans do want to see people slice and dice.
It's comic book fans are adults too. It's not just kids. Absolutely. Yeah. Like there's an audience out there for. I'm not. And now the negative to that is that we may start seeing that trend where okay, let's put out R-rated movies. Let's put out R-rated X-Men movies or R-rated Fantastic Four movies or whatever.
Well, it's I mean, on the other hand, you got something like the new Star Wars, which is getting reshot because they made it too serious, and they wanted to, and And this is the idiot logic that you get from big studios, where like the reason they're doing these, okay, in all fairness, I have not seen the original, but Gareth Edwards is not a hack, he knows what he's doing, and Godzilla admittedly was not a great movie, but it looked good, the acting wasn't terrible. It was just sort of, I don't know, I think it was more of a plot issue. But we've all seen the Star Wars Rogue One trailer. It looks awesome. It looks serious. It looks dark. It looks killer. And now the studio is making them do a reshoot specifically because they want to match the tone of A New Hope, because that's what it's going to lead into.
Oh.
And the guy said you have to match the tone. That was the exact quote from one of these knuckleheads, which is completely wrong.
Yeah.
You don't have to match the tone. What you have to do is create something, because your audience has changed, and if you don't grow with your audience and you don't develop and mature with your audience, I mean, yeah, I can still watch Star Wars and the original Star Wars and love it, but I also, there's something that touches me back when I was a kid or whatever, anybody the first time they saw that.
Yeah.
And so you give it credence, you give it your brain helps you enjoy that movie,
Yes, the nostalgic factor.
Well, and hey, listen, it's still the greatest movie ever made. Don't get me wrong, but but a movie like Empire Strikes Back, you don't need that as much because it's genuine. It was a more mature film, in the way it was filmed and the subject it portrayed. You had lead people being tortured and
Yeah.
And the audience for Star Wars, like, they're trying to market it to the same crowd. I don't know. I just think, I don't know. I think it's not a good. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But that was disappointing news to hear that.
Yeah. You know what? I haven't really been following the.
Sorry, was I ranting?
No, that's fine. That's what this show's about. That's what everything awesome is about. Is tangents and ranting. And it's funny because Rogue One, I watched that trailer and I had the complete opposite. I didn't hate it, but I was not in love with it like everyone else in the world.
Really?
And I have not, for that reason, I have not really followed anything about it, because I kind of want to now just when it comes out, I just want to go and see it and ingest it. And with no expectations. Like, I went to go see Force Awakens with a certain set of expectations, and for the most part, they were met. But
but how many times did you see it?
I only saw it once.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You only saw it once because everying that they wanted you to see, you saw. There was no depth to it.
Yeah, and there was definitely things that, like, for instance, I knew I had a good feeling. Well, I said, there's an 80% chance Han Solo is going to die in this movie. Spoilers. Oh,
by the way.
If you haven't seen Star Wars, first of all, what? Secondly, spoilers.
That was amazing.
But there's an 80% chance I knew that he was going to die going in. There was like a 99% chance I knew that Kylo Ren, spoilers, was going to be a kid of somebody's. I didn't know Han Solo, but I knew he was going to be a kid.
But all these things don't even matter. I mean, well, the Han Solo, it's not that it doesn't matter, but that's not the things that make you love or hate a movie.
Yes.
It's the flair of it. It's the flavor of it. It's the style that's brought with it. And the style that was brought with this movie, like, this is, okay, here's the thing with J.J. Abrams. He does certain things really, really well. Like, there's certain shots and certain scenes that he captures things. You're like, fuck yeah, that's fucking cool. But then he does other stuff that you're kind of like, that was sort of stupid. And the big thing that I feel is lacking is that filter mechanism to filter out the bullshit. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I think that's what makes a great director and a great movie. It's, Star Wars had an original edit that was terrible by all accounts, and George Lucas's wife at the time, who was his editor, went through and cut out a whole bunch of stuff out of the movie, and that's what we ended up with.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That is So you started off in the pre-show saying that you weren't a true geek, and
I can't remember her name.
That's the factoid, though. Like, I mean, maybe that's a popular factoid. I've never heard that. That's a cool little Star Wars fact.
Perfect. And then look what happened with the new movies. When he has complete control over things and he can do them the way he wants to do them, they go on forever. There's a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff, and all the stiff acting is revealed because the cuts are too long. You could. I'm not saying this is. I don't know. It might be beyond salvageable, but I'm willing to bet that you could recut those last 3 movies that supposedly didn't happen, in such a manner that would be actually something approaching a movie you'd want to watch more than,
Topher Grace from that 70s fame, he has I forget which one he recut, but he recut a movie. It was either one of them or all 3 of them into one movie, and by all accounts, the Topher Grace cut.
Really?
The rumor is
I haven't seen this, so that's
neither
awesome.
Neither have I. I have not seen the movie, but I've seen the story, and the rumor is that this Topher Grace cut that exists is great. Like it makes if it's one of them or it combines all 3, whatever he did, it makes it so much better. And the sounds of it is that he cut out the bullshit.
Well, take the last Hobbit series, okay? You had Lord of the Rings. Brilliant from start to finish, right? Even the 4.5 hour long versions are brilliant from start to finish. And then, you take Peter Jackson, who now has, this head of confidence and this mandate that he can, bring this world to us and we'll just eat everything he puts in front of us. And he takes one book and expands it into 3 movies. And they're terrible. They're boring as shit. They go on forever. You're listening to dwarves singing for 20 minutes. At least before you had hobbits crying. It makes you miss the crying hobbits.
See, I have not seen the Hobbit trilogy.
It's terrible.
But that
because it goes on forever, and you're extending and pulling shit out because you're so in love with your own material.
Yeah.
And you're so in love with your own scenes. You're like, okay, yeah, look how great this is. Let's just let this scene play out. But it's not playing out because it has to. It's playing out because the hubris of the director feels that it's that good that people are just going to want to be entertained and enraptured by this thing. And it's not. It's a long, boring, stupid scene that should have been cut short.
Yeah, and that's I think definitely goes with what we said with Ryan saying. Like, directors kind of become their own worst enemy when it comes to
you just become too much of a creative or too much of a powerful force.
Yeah,
and then you have nobody is around to tell you suck, and if they are, you're fired.
And that's what that's my fear with Deadpool going forward. Are they right now? I think Deadpool is the saving grace of the X-Men franchise. It was just so fun, and I would like to hope that because the people involved, like Tim Miller and Ryan Reynolds and everyone else that literally spent the last 10 years trying to get this movie made, or however long it's been. They spent a long time trying to get this movie made. I want that passion to stay. And I think one of the mistakes that's going to happen is that the studio, Fox, is just going to give them a lot of money, more money than they need. Keep the budget low. I think will be the saving grace of that film.
And the other mistake they're going to make is they're going to start to have quote unquote fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is exactly what happened with Iron Man 2.
Yeah, you
get a stupid movie.
Yeah, I don't remember. See,
or the second Thor movie, same problem.
So now that one I don't. Yeah, that one I see.
Yeah, it's just you just at some point you're watching this and the fourth wall is broken down by the fact that you're like, wait a minute, this is kind of dumb. What are they doing? They're just chewing scenery and having I don't want to see my actors having fun. I want to see my actors kicking ass and being actors. Then I have fun.
Yes. See, for me, with Marvel movies and maybe comic book movies,
you definitely got me ranting now.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I love it. For me, I have 3 tiers of comic book movies, and this may just be my Marvel movies. I kind of forget how. It's been a while since I've ranked them this way, but the top tier is your Iron Man type movies. Where they're just so good,
You're talking about Iron Man 1.
Yes, Iron Man 1. So Iron Man 1, your original X-Men, X1, X2, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, like they're all like top tier, I think, more like comic book movies. Then you have
done with reverence by the director, casted properly with good storylines.
And then you have like your middle ground movies, which for me are like your Thor, your
I actually thought the first Thor movie was actually surprisingly good.
Yeah, I agree. It was
Captain America actually.
The Captain America trilogy, I think, is fantastic from start.
They've done surprisingly good with that. Yeah,
I think it's probably their most. It's probably their most well done franchise in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Consistently.
Yes. For me, I mean, nothing is.
Supposedly, the new one supposedly is great, but I have not seen it. So
Civil War?
Civil War. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so going to that. That is another one for me. It's the parallel. The only way I can describe that
you
movie.
You cannot spoil this one.
I will not spoil it. What I'm going to say is that that movie, the storyline of Civil War from the comic books, is between that and the Walking Dead comic book is what got me back into comics. I think 10 years ago is when that storyline happened. Yeah. So. And as soon as I got done reading Civil War, I said they should make this a movie. I know it's impossible, but they should make this a movie. So when they first announced, and then we got trailers, and it led up to me seeing this movie, like for me, it was my Star Wars moment. Like the way that most like the kids that grew up watching Star Wars felt about Force Awakens is how I felt about Civil War.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, and I may be one of the few that feel that way. It was just to me, it's an important storyline because it kind of brought me back into this whole like nerd life, this nerdum comic booky type life. Because it was just a really well done comic. And I mean, I never was a Captain America fan growing up. Reading Civil War and
it was never a character that appealed to me at all.
Because he was nothing back. Like he was literally just the guy who punched Hitler. Like he wasn't a great character. And Ed Brubaker.
Well, and most young kids' patriotism is like not the foremost thing on their mind. The foremost thing on their mind is shooting webs out of their fucking wrists.
Exactly. And I wrote a blog years ago that kind of said like. I think everyone kind of has like this maturity when it comes to superheroes, and like everyone kind of starts off with Spider-Man, and then you eventually graduate to, and I forget the exact things, but you usually end up with like a Batman character that you look at as like the character. That's because you're an adult now and you appreciate something that's a little bit more maybe depthy or whatever. But anyway, so Captain America. I gotta
be honest with you, though. To that point, I always stuck with Spidey.
Oh, really?
And, because he was constructed in such a way that like that depth was always there from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
But it was presented in a lighthearted manner. So
yes.
when you go back and revisit it,
mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you're right. You got the depth of a character. Like it's not even depth; it's like the darkness.
Of
the Batman and stuff like that. But to me, that like I find more depth when things are not as obviously dark.
You're right. Yeah. I guess I misphrased that, but yeah, I mean, for me,
but Spider-Man as a surface character is exactly what you said. He's it's this lighthearted, bouncing around, joke-making, sort of crime-fighting guy.
And I'll tell you what. If you're a Spider-Man person and like you never left that world, you will be so happy with Civil War and how they treat him.
Everybody has said that. Yeah, they said they got Spidey right.
It's and for me, like the way they had to work Civil War in the movie cinematic universe is obviously different than how it came out in the comic book, and I think they treated it right. Like I said, I mean, Civil War and the Captain America run around Civil War, was like it made me get a Cap shield tattooed on my body. Like that's how much I enjoyed that movie.
Okay, you got me beat.
I was never a Captain America fan, and the fact that I have his shield on my arm says a lot about Ed Brubaker as a writer, and just that story that they were telling between all the different writers in that era. And they did. Like I've loved Captain America for the last 10 years, and to see Civil War come to screen and come to life was like my Star Wars moment. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
But this also comes down to, I mean, none of this would have worked if they hadn't cast him, right?
Absolutely right. Like Chris Evans,
he's perfect.
When he first was casted, I was like, oh, come on, that's the Human Torch. You're mixing it. But I'm so happy that I was proven wrong.
And how good of a job did they do with the beginning, with making him where you're first introduced to him as like the skinny, version of him. I mean, it was amazing. I was sitting there. How did they? Mm-hmm. You're watching the movie, and you don't realize until after the transformation of the character that you've been fooled from the beginning. Because at first, he transforms into muscly him, and you're like, okay, obviously I just saw some crazy CGI thing happen. But no, actually now you're just seeing. So now you're like looking for the flaw, and you can't find it because it's not there, because you were bullshitted up to that point, but you never saw it.
Yeah, it's and
it was a really, like, as a special effects aficionado, I was really, really impressed that, like, I got totally fooled because I didn't realize it was the same actor. I didn't even recognize him, So I didn't know this was supposed to be some muscly guy. So you're just like, okay, you just buy it as the skinny kid, whatever.
Yeah. They
it was amazing.
They treated the way I really like. So I still stand by that. If you were a fan of Winter Soldier, and I think that may be so far that's my favorite Marvel movie. I think is the Winter Soldier. I just think it's really well done. Like, that's a story that if you put Jason Bourne or if you put any action hero in that role, like, it still works. Like, it works without the comic book superhero background.
And I guess there's a new Jason Bourne coming out, right?
Yeah,
called Jason Bourne or something.
Yes,
creatively enough.
Jason Bourne again. I'm not sure what it's called. But
we'll see how it goes.
But yeah, I think Winter Soldier is still the best Captain America movie. But Civil War as a Captain America movie is the best Avengers movie, like, for sure. Right. It's and you'll again, I'm not going to spoil it, but it is so good. Like, and again, if anything. If depending on how hyped you are when you see it, how much you hold this up on at the very least, even if somehow you disappoint yourself because it's now held up so high, you'll walk out saying, well, at least I know that I'm going to love Spider-Man, because that could be anyone that hated that movie, which I don't think many people did. But if you walk away hating that movie, at the very least, you can say they finally nailed Spider-Man 100%.
Well, like the first Spider, what's his name?
Tobey
the little
Maguire.
Guy.
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, he wasn't my ideal, because I didn't,
Yeah.
We didn't grow up with the original Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That was like, when the hell was that, in the 60s?
Yes.
So they created this character that harkened back to like the first 12 issues of the series, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they did a really good job, but that wasn't like the Spider-Man that was like when I was a kid. It was, it was Peter Parker in his mid-20s with his apartment in Queens, and so I'm still hoping to see that. I don't know if this is what that is now, but
I won't spoil it for you.
So,
I won't spoil it
don't
for
say
you.
anything. Good.
For me,
let's stop talking about this.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I will say about the generations of Spider-Man we've had since Tobey Maguire. I think Tobey Maguire was a better Peter Parker than a Spider-Man. I think Andrew Garfield was a better Spider-Man than he was Peter Parker.
I didn't see the Garfield stuff at all. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just not a fan of reboots, man.
I was angry about the reboot. It got me out of
comic books. It gets me out of the movies.
Yeah, it was. It was an
I've been
unneeded.
Struggling with it in the Star Trek shit. It's like,
The Andrew Garfield years, as we'll call them now, were definitely unneeded. But I sat down and watched the first one. I don't think I watched the second one. But he played like his Spider-Man was more like the 90s cartoon Spider-Man, which has always kind of been my Spider-Man. Like, I just liked how he acted and like his quick wittiness and whatnot. So Andrew Garfield brought that to Spider-Man, but his Peter Parker was kind of lousy. All I'll say about the new Spider-Man is that I think we get the best Peter Parker we've ever seen and the best Spider-Man we've ever seen.
All right. I'm sold. How about you, audience?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's great. I think you'll walk away happy with it.
The audience is already on season 3 of Game of Thrones. They're like, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah. They bailed out and said we're just going to rewatch.
Like, you don't like the Dragon Queen or whatever the hell.
I have a buddy who he's I think actually in the next week or so I agreed to give it a real try watching Game of Thrones, and then we'll podcast about it.
All right.
Because I have this fascination with like there's a certain genre of podcasts out there that like where one of the hosts
wrap up kind of
Well, yeah, I love that too. Because I love to talk. But there's this one show out there that I listen to that every now and then they'll have a special episode. It's called, the podcast is I Like to Movie, and every now and then they do a movie review, and they do a couple shows that are themed after the fact that one host has seen a movie and is a beloved fan of said movie, and then the other host has never seen it, so he watches it for the first time, and then they talk about it. And that dynamic of like super fan and like newcomer really works for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, obviously the point is to appeal to both.
Yeah.
Without sacrificing the quality of what you're doing.
Yeah, so we're
tricky.
Yeah, we're gonna try to do a Game of Thrones. 6 years later, we're gonna try to do a Game of Thrones podcast. So
episode 1, season 1.
Yeah, yep. We're gonna do a 1-for-1 episode to fill up the summer or however long the between season 6 and 7 of Game of Thrones. We're going to watch a bunch of episodes of Game of Thrones, my first time, and we're going to talk about it. So expect
to see a lot of dismemberment and a lot of man ass.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it's a lot of that and dragon eggs or something. I don't really know.
I don't know. I watched one episode and I saw more naked male butts than I needed to.
It is.
And then somebody's hand got chopped off. I'm like, really? This is what people are into, huh?
It's going to be. I'm wondering if it will catch me, because I have like a 3-episode rule when it comes to any kind of show, and I will try to watch the first 3 episodes, no matter how good or bad. And then if by episode 3 you haven't won me over, then I kind of bail out.
Well, that's what fucked me over with Jessica Jones. I got into there's things that go, and then I was watching 4 episodes a night just to cram through it.
Yeah.
Like, God.
Yeah, and you know what? David Tennant, who played Kilgrave, I'm a huge fan of his. So
God, you just so badly want to strangle that fucker.
Oh yeah,
no spoiler here now.
No spoiling Jessica Jones.
God, you just fucking want to. Ooh, he's so annoying.
I think I'd be willing to say he's the best villain Marvel has ever put out.
Man, okay, I'd have to like. There's okay, that's a whole nother. I don't even know.
I'm trying. Well, who as a villain, who do you think's better
for Marvel
in the cinematic universe?
Oh God, I mean, we got there's Magneto's pretty good, which the Magneto pronunciation freaks me out. I feel like that's still wrong, even though that's how they do it.
Yeah, but you know what? That's Fox. Like I don't count him as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
As a Marvel, so you're talking about the actual
the cinematic universe, the thing that's all connected together. I think Kilgrave is one of the best handled.
So what movies are in the Marvel? See, this is where I get confused by the studios that are doing all this crap, because I just relate them to the comic books.
Got you. Yeah.
So
pretty much anything that's an Avenger is Marvel Cinematic Universe. Plus,
they
the
haven't
TV
had
shows.
a whole lot of Brian Cox Kilgrave. He's just such a cocksucker.
You know what? I'll tell you what, and you'll find this out when you go to.
I mean, he's a complete sociopath. Yeah. So there's that.
Well, you know what? I think I'm wrong, and I think Civil War gives us the best villain that the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever has, and I'll say that without saying anything else. And when you go see the movie, you'll see why Baron Zemo, I think he may have taken the crown from Kilgrave.
Well, Kilgrave is definitely the most. I mean, they took a lot of license. I mean, he just does horrible fucking things to people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and doesn't care.
Yeah,
it's pretty dark.
I think Daredevil was the better show on Netflix out of the two, but
has the Rose entered into Daredevil, or is it all like the Kingpin and stuff like that?
I think
Did they ever bring him in as a character yet?
I don't think not yet. I don't think so. Trying to harken back. Definitely not season 1. I don't think season 2.
I always loved the Rose. He was when this was through the Spider-Man series, but when the Rose was employing the Hobgoblin and like so good. Anyway, sorry.
Okay. Well, while we're on the comic book talk, what? Tell me about this massive collection that was brought up, and I think in conversation with your publicist.
I started collecting when I was a kid, and then how many comics do you fit in I don't know. There's a lot of them. There's thousands of them, but
that's crazy. Like, because I'm super casual compared to you, because I have maybe 2 long boxes filled, and that was all recent stuff. That was all Civil War era, because like I got rid of all my comics from when I was a kid. Because I thought I was too cool for comics.
No, you know what? I stopped collecting when Marvel started doing when they rebooted the whole universe.
Yeah,
I was done.
Yeah, I mean, it is very hard. See, and that's another thing. Like, as much as
it's the most disrespectful thing you can do to a fan. Like, so you take your content, you mass produce it on such a scale because you're overcome with this, like, oh, we've got this great thing, we need to make more money. So you create all these titles. So now every great storyline that you could have extended out through like 5 years is now condensed to 6 months because you have so many titles, and then you run out of material. So you're saying, okay, you know what, we're going to hit the reset button. Like, fuck you, man.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan. The only time it's a reboot like that has worked for me was when DC did the New 52.
I don't even know what that is.
They rebooted. I think it was the first time they did like a mass reboot where they every if not maybe it was only 90% of their comics rebooted to issue 1.
Why would you do that? Like, why would you do that to your fans? And like, oh yeah, remember all those comics? Remember when you were a kid and you read these comics and they made you so mad or sad, or you like wanted to hit something, or you cried, or you were just like, you're so into these characters, and like now you're 10, 20 years later, that doesn't matter. That didn't happen.
Well, for DC, they got me. I've always been a Marvel reader, but I picked up an issue of Batman. I was like, what the hell? I've heard a lot of good things about Scott Snyder, and it's Batman #1, so I'll pick it up and read it. And I think I read like 20 some issues out of I think he just finished issue like 51 a month or 2 ago. So like I read about half his stuff in that Batman New 52 stuff, and like the way he worked it, like he's from the get-go said, as far as I'm concerned, everything that happened before happened. This is just like a different time period for me. So like, this is, it's just a different era of Batman's life that we're talking about.
So it's not a reboot. It's like
it was tricky because they've also now, I think they're about to, or they already have reverted back to the old numbering, which means that they're back in the old, like they rebooted
the old.
Yeah, they rebooted it to the old story.
I mean, there's a way to do this that's like, like the Dark Knight. Like that's a way to have a whole new take on a character without fucking with canon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And creating and yet revitalizing. And I mean, Frank Miller's treatment of the Dark Knight, then, when people saw how everybody responded to that, the current day comic book became more serious.
Yes.
Right. So there's a way to revitalize canon without fucking with it.
No, I totally agree. And I would have probably said the same thing about when Marvel rebooted. I think that's kind of when I kind of have stopped reading comics altogether just because I tend to talk a lot more about things than I have time to read. And so like I schedule, I just don't have time to read comic books anymore. Like there's so much more going on in my life. And I'm in my 30s. When I was a kid, 10 years ago, I didn't have children. So I had time to dick around and read comic books. Now I kind of have to be a responsible adult. Like it's this weird thing.
So now you bitch about comic books.
Yeah, exactly. More specifically, comic book movies, because like that's what I have time for. But I think for the most part, like we're lucky. I think we've mainly get good things, and as long as I think Fantastic Four, that's the biggest thing that we need to get back in Marvel's hands, and then I think it'll be done right.
Yeah, I've been atrocious.
All right, so let's get into the reason you're here. Let's talk about your new album a little bit. Let's now that we did what this show does, and let's talk a little bit about you. Go on a lot of different tangents. Let's go a little bit about you and your new album that is releasing in. This is me stalling to look at a calendar in about 24 hours.
Yeah. So there's the digital release, which happens on Tuesday, June 28th. Which,
yes.
But there's also the vinyl release, which I started doing a pre-sale for maybe, like a month ago or something like that. But vinyl takes 3 months or something like that to get pressed.
Oh, wow. Okay.
By like the fastest places out there right now.
Okay.
So I'm not going to have the vinyl ready to ship until probably mid-August.
Okay.
Which is actually, like, to be honest, that's the one I'm really excited about. And I just got they send a test pressing out to you to, just to make sure that it sounds right before they go and stamp them all.
Okay.
And I just listened to it on vinyl, over at my mastering engineer's place, and it sounds killer, dude. It's so cool.
So let me ask you, as a total novice when it comes to music, because I just like to listen to, like, hey, let me turn on a good tune. And I've always wanted to ask this, but I guess never had the right person to ask. What is the exact difference between listening to something on vinyl versus cassette, digital, CD?
You know what? Surprisingly, very little. I used to think that records sounded really different because, I don't know, there's just something about the physical process of making them that, like, the bandwidth was not, you couldn't have as much low end and then I've been listening to like some really modern vinyl, and it actually sounds great because I never really liked the sound of vinyl. I mean, vinyls, I've always loved the sound of, like, jazz on vinyl, where it's like really mid-rangey anyway. But it turns out that the vinyl can sound kind of a lot more like a record, like a CD, or like. Okay, put it this way. We were listening to the digital master and the vinyl master of this new record of mine back and forth, and I couldn't tell which was which.
Oh, okay. So that was totally not the answer I was expecting.
No, you can't. And it blew me away. I did not expect that. I thought, but here's the trick. In order to make it sound like that, we had to do, how, like, some things it'll say mastered for iTunes when you buy it on the computer. I still don't know what the hell that means.
Okay.
But when you're mastering for vinyl, you have to add, we had to add treble to the recording. We had to check the low end to make sure things were in line. There's a lot of stuff you have to do so that when you get it back, it sounds the way you want it to sound.
Gotcha.
So you have to overcompensate for frequencies that are going to be, tweaked in a certain way. But if you do that right, which thank God we did, it sounds perfect. It sounds killer.
Okay, so the goal with a vinyl is to actually make it sound as digital as possible, but just have this cool physical piece.
Well, not sound digital, but to sound as true as possible.
As true as possible. Yeah. Okay, as true.
But there's, I feel like maybe playback mechanisms are different back in the day or something, because if you listen to, like, any record from, I don't know, like the early 80s or something, like you go back and listen to the Cars or something like that, and then there's not really any low end on any of these records, and there is an issue with vinyl where you have to be very careful about how you mix the bottom end in, because if it's too much, it's the way the grooves are cut physically, it can cause a problem, and you'll get skipping on the record or stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, this also isn't a dub, there's not a ton of low end on this. It just, I don't know. It sounds amazing. That's all I can tell you. I was really surprised and impressed.
Because I feel like vinyl has made, like, a huge comeback. Like, I've probably heard about vinyl more times in the last, we'll say, 3 to 5 years than I had in the 15 to 20 years prior to that.
Thank God for hipsters, right?
It's just like it's hip to be old again. Like,
I think it's the idea that it's. Okay, I'll tell you the reason I made vinyl.
Okay.
Is, I mean,
to sell to the hipsters.
Well, hopefully, if they have any money. No, but like, part of it was I recorded this record entirely on tape. This whole thing was recorded on a reel-to-reel machine in my studio. Like, I did the whole thing old school, so I figured that was a good way to sort of honor the analog medium was to produce it in an analog format for people, which is vinyl, you know. But the other thing too is that I love the physicality of a record. I love the fact that you have artwork. I remember when I was like a little like a fetus, you know, sitting there listening to records, and I would just stare at the album cover for you know, like Peter, you know, like Peter and the Wolf or Winnie the Pooh or something, you know, and like as a kid, and you just stare at it and you listen to the whole thing, and you're just reading this thing back and forth. So I created it. That's why I wanted to do the vinyl. I wanted to create something that people would want to actually physically own, you know. And the record it's like a gatefold cover, you know. It opens up. There's just cool artwork, and
cool.
And then there's more artwork on the slipcase when you pull it up. So it's, you know, we're doing like a limited edition print run thing and all this stuff. And I'm hoping it'll be, you know, like a collector's kind of thing.
Yeah, I just went to the local Guitar Center today to pick up a cable for that I didn't use, but pick up a cable to, you know, for the studio that I'm kind of rebuilding, and like they have like this little vinyl section. Like it blows my mind that's like a thing, like, to the point where I'm like I kind of want to get like a record player and buy some vinyl. Like I don't know, like. Not, I guess, to be a hipster at the end of the day.
Well, you know, and to be honest with you, like I would be willing to bet you half the people that are going to buy the vinyl copy of this record are not going to play it on a record player. You know, they're going to get it because they're collectors, and you know what I mean, and they want a physical piece of something that's like a special print run, and they want to be able to physically own something that is musical, but you can hold in your hand, you know. Yeah, maybe even put on your wall, you know. People put stuff in the, you know, so which is totally fine by me because, you know, they'll get the music. Yeah. You know, I mean, I hope that they'll open it up and listen to it, but they can hear it, you know, on iTunes if they want, and it'll sound pretty much the same.
Now, as long as you've been playing music, I don't think we really even asked that question or answered it, but has the way that you know, the digital world, like with YouTube and iTunes and all that, has that made like being a musician or even a producer like easier?
It's no.
Yeah, it's usually the answer I get is no.
But it's just completely different, man. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know, like. I wouldn't even know. That's like a whole nother. That's a whole nother 3 podcasts. Yeah, of discussion. You have a lot. Yeah, I mean, there's just, you know, it's made it much more of a mom and pop operation, I guess. You know, like yeah. I mean, I am my own everything. I have my own label. Organic Audio is the label which is also the name of my recording studio. Nice. The publicist who introduced us to each other is under my employ. It's not a, you know, like I'm hiring her. My booking agent is somebody I found. The company that licenses my music for film and television and things like that, I just, you know, hooked up with this company called 411 Music that are going to be representing like that went through me, you know, like there's no, you know, so like, you know, it's a good time if you're not afraid to work. You know what I mean? Yes. If you're the kind of artist who wants to sit there and create and do nothing else, which I mean most of us are, you know, but you're probably not going to get too far. You know, I mean, you need somebody. There has to be a team, and now that I'm assembling a team of these people and they're all going to bat for me, it's fucking cool, man. But I send out, you know, I'm in touch with everybody every week. I'm checking up on everybody all the time, you know, and thankfully they're all doing a great job. So
very cool.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to just find the right people. You know,
Yeah.
I met most of the people, all the people I'm working with, I've met through recommendations from other bands, from other friends.
Very cool.
So, I don't know. Was that an answer? Or was that? I don't remember. What was your question?
Dude, I don't know, because as you were talking, I was flipping through the document about you just to see if there was anything else I wanted to bring up before I let you go. And,
yeah. Actually, yeah, and point of order, you asked me, I have to be on stage in about 20 minutes, so
yes,
we will have to wrap this up pretty soon.
No, and that's why we are going to let you go, but definitely the next time, maybe like closer to August or whenever you have something to promote, I think you should come back on the show, because we can get into some very cool things like your
I'd love to.
3,000 plus. I have a number. It's 3,000 plus comic book collection
That
that was not sold off, including Amazing Spider-Man number 300.
Which I waited in line with a broken leg for an autograph from Todd McFarlane.
And that, we can get into.
Yeah.
We can definitely get into that stuff. I'm actually something that we've another theme on this show is we talk to a lot of tabletoppers, and so I didn't know that until reading this document a little bit more thoroughly, that you look like you have some experience in playing some old school D&D. So I feel like there's potential for us to talk again. So definitely, and I will. This is boring. We shouldn't be talking this on the air, but we're going to anyway.
This is what happens, people.
Yeah, this is how. I think most people know this show. Anyone that listens to the show and still listens to the show knows that at some point near the end of it, I say we start talking business and start talking about how you're going to be on the show again. But definitely, A, thank you for being on the show, and B, anytime you want to be on the show, whether it's to promote something or just shoot the shit, let me know, and I'd love to have you back. Yeah, and I definitely, I want you back first and foremost, because I feel like there's a lot, like even with tabletop especially, like I feel like that's a whole just a whole topic for us to chat about.
Hopefully multiple generations.
Yes. I think so. I think it's more popular than ever now. But that we will save for next time that you're on the show. Throw out some plugs that you want besides your album that's dropping in a day here.
Plugs. Well, there's the band Owl, which I play with, owltheband.net. There is the old band that I was in, Black Belt Karate. We're actually working on some new recordings, so there might be some stuff coming out. And we've had some of our music recently, like last few months, was on a couple TV shows. And things
very
like that.
cool.
So, that's the band Black Belt Karate, which is sort of like on hiatus, but we'll see. But yeah, my stuff, I guess, it's I have a website. It's jamezilis.com, which is, I guess, hopefully easy enough to remember.
It'll be in the show notes too.
Yeah, cool, excellent. Yeah, and there's we made a video. I'm hopefully going to be doing tour dates. Hopefully, we're looking to West Coast in maybe August.
Okay.
And then rest of the country towards the end of the year.
Very cool.
Let's see. I finished. Well, I don't know when it's going to come out, but I'd recently mixed a record for a solo solo record for Dizzy Reed, who's the keyboardist of Guns N' Roses.
Okay.
And he and I have been working together and have been producing some new stuff as well. And but obviously he's pretty busy this summer, on tour with them. But hopefully that'll be coming out sometime in the fall. We'll see.
Okay, very cool.
And I don't know. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. I do a lot of mixing and production work for a lot of local artists in LA too. So
yeah, and we have I'll make sure to get all your links that were provided to me on the show notes.
Links, ladies and gentlemen, links is what makes the world go round.
Yes, like organic audio recorders.
Oh yeah, yes. The studio, that whole place where I make money. Yeah.
There's that. Then your Twitter and your Instagram.
The Twitter, I think, is probably pointless, but you're welcome to put it out there.
See, it's funny because Twitter has become my social media platform of choice.
Really?
Yeah, because it's the one place that I don't feel bad ranting.
But how do you rant with
Oh,
Three sentences.
Because I just send out like 6 tweets in a row.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's how and sometimes if I really want to make sure people know like that they need to read in a specific order, I'll tag it 1 of 6, 2 of 6, or whatever.
You got it. Okay, this is. Yeah, tweeting is like antithetical to the rambling.
Well, it's and this could be a whole other topic for another conversation. But like Facebook for me has turned into more of a place that like this is like for me, my friends and family, for me to like just share pictures of my kids and whatnot. Twitter has turned into like where I like engage my fans or just people in general.
What are the kids into these days? What's the thing now?
For social media, I think it's Snapchat, and that's where I get lost. Like, it's when I start to like the 78-year-old side of me starts to creep out, and right.
Well, I mean, they didn't
scared.
have there weren't really airplanes when you were their age. So
airplanes. The 2 things I'm afraid of: airplanes and Snapchat. Like. It's
you got to embrace the future, man.
Snapchat. Like I tried it once years ago, but that's like it was all about like just like I guess it would have been good for when I was a single person because like from what I know of Snapchat, like I don't want my kids to ever know about it because it's about sending nudes.
Yeah, I thought that was like Snapchat was all sort of like dick pics and
like now it's apparently like
untraceable porn or something.
Yeah, no, apparently now it's like a legitimate social media platform that like people and celebrities and people use, and whenever someone says you should get in the Snapchat game, I curl up into a ball and say I'm afraid. Like
see, once again, boobies pave the way for new technology. This is how it always happens.
Oh, and I think that's the note we're gonna leave on. So make sure
and scene
you check out. Where can they get your album digitally? iTunes, I assume.
Yeah. If you
did we even say the name of the album? I don't think we did.
Come Down.
There we go.
But it's better if you just search my name, my full name. It'll come up. And actually, there's I can give you the link because it's available as a pre-sale.
Okay.
So if you type my name and Come Down on iTunes right now, you'll find the link and you can put it up for even though it's not going to be up till the next day.
Okay. Very cool. So we'll do that. And so you lucky listeners listening on day one, we'll have the link to buy the music before anybody else.
Damn right, and it sounds better the sooner you get it.
Yeah, it's weird how iTunes sets that up.
Funny thing how that works. Yeah, if you wait a week, it's just not going to be.
Yeah, cool. There's like static, and it sounds like a dog's chewing on a microphone.
Yeah, it's no good.
All right.
Well, that's actually part of the record. But yeah.
Okay, I see. Now I'm interested. All right, Jason, thank you for doing the show. This was a lot of fun, and definitely I would love for you to come back sometime.
My pleasure. We'll talk. We'll talk again soon. Thank you for thanks for having me.
Make sure you check out Jason on all the social media things that he said on the show. They're also going to be down in the link show note thingy area. I've been doing this for 10 years. You'd think I know the verbiage. I don't. Whatever. You can find me on Twitter at HHWST. You can find the show on Twitter at Awesome Podcast. For Everything is Awesome, I'm Kev, and you've been listening to us right here only on awesomepodcast.com. And that's it. That's our bonus 4th of July episode for you. Big thanks to Jason for being on the show. And I hope he has time for our little show here in the future because he's a busy guy with busy things, big things happening. But we just scratched the surface with Jason. I think we have just as much conversation left for part 2 than we did in part 1. And again, going back to our first interview with Tal Klein, check out Inkshares. Links will be in the show notes and stuff. And another great... we only got a half hour with him. I can't wait to get a full hour and a half or more with him next time and really do a proper non-bonus episode with him. So check that out on inkshares.com. You'll see under the contests. And we'll put all the links for both guys will be under the show notes for, Jason's album, Tal's books, all in the show notes right here. Thanks for listening. We'll be back Wednesday. Finally, Jason Ashley from Too Cool for Tabletop is going to be on the show. We finally got an interview recorded and saved, and it's going to happen. It finally happened, and you're finally going to hear it. So check that out on Wednesday, part 1 of my conversation with Jason Ashley from Too Cool for Tabletop. until then, have a good holiday, safe holiday, and we'll see you next time right here, only on Everything is Awesome, only on awesomepodcast.com. Everything is Awesome is produced by Crude Humor Studios. For more information about the podcast, please visit us online at awesomepodcast.com. Or if you're interested in advertising on the show, please email us at advertising@crudehumorstudios.com. Stream and download all episodes on iTunes. While you're there, please consider leaving a 5-star review. If you're a fan of the show, please let us know by following us on Twitter and Instagram @ThatEntertains.